Happy Monday. Welcome back to Retake the Week. It's been another busy one. No big grand final to discuss, but plenty of CS has been played. We also have, Blast Lisbon updates, transfers, all that stuff, but we do have the end of ESEA Advanced, so we know which teams are making it into Challenger League for next season. We will be recapping that, talking about some of the players who stood out, some of the teams who surprised us, sometimes positive, sometimes incredibly negative, but we'll get into all of it later in the show. Quack, of course, joins me as he always does, this time awkwardly not making eye contact with you because, he's just one of those guys, he's got a little bit of the special sauce. He just can't maintain that kind of... I'm kidding. Quack, how you doing? Your mic isn't working. I don't know what has just happened, but your mic just isn't working. There we go.
Oh, I had a voice changer on. That would have been so funny. Oh, never mind. Yeah. Oh, but then I didn't have a good line. Okay, never mind. No, I'm doing good. I was gonna do the P Diddy joke about Alvin and the Chipmunks. No, yeah. No, I'm doing very good.
Okay.
It's been a couple of weeks. I'm back. Since last week.
Yeah.
And
just not there for the people, are you? You're just not showing up.
I'm not. I've never been here for the people.
He's here for the money. All the money.
All the money, no people, please. No, I've had a bunch of shit to do. I went to a lot of shit. I went to the Swedish Esports Championship and did a bunch of content out of there. If you want to read some interview with CS players or people around CS. Actually, do you know where Gällivare is in Sweden?
Not even slightly.
When that is way up in the north. It's basically the point where it's nighttime all the time during winter. It's basically
yeah, cool.
They had a team in this Counter-Strike final in the Esports Championship, which is not a huge thing. It's basically they play one game on LAN and the rest is qualifiers. But it's officially recognized by the country, by the official sports authority. This is the world championship or the Swedish championship in esports. They had a team in the Counter-Strike final. They traveled the length of the country, because this was in the south where I live, with a whole team and 7 people who came down from over there just to watch that game. And that's like a 4-day trip, back and forth. I mean,
Yep.
So yeah, insane. It was really cool. I met a lot of cool people, and if you want to read some interviews with people, there's going to be a lot of that. Everything out of that is on my Twitter. So just watch that. A lot of stuff. All of it in Swedish, but it's still fun to read, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last week I was very relaxed.
Clearly. Couldn't be bothered to be here for the people. But yeah, speaking of the people, we got to thank the members for making this show possible. I mean, I need to change the thumbnails that I used to promo the behind the scenes, because we have a new interview out with Sembler. It's already the biggest member content piece I've done. You need to move to your left, by the way, a bit. We do the prospect demos live. Last week was all thrown off schedule by a variety of life bullshit. So we ended up releasing the interview Tuesday, doing the whole prospect demos live stream Friday. It was all over the shop. Usually Tuesday and Thursday, pretty regularly. Usually between 11 and 1 o'clock is when I'll do prospect demos. Yeah, all that content happens. You get obviously access to BTS, as well as the right to vote on things. Vote on things that are more important than general questions. There is a community post out right now about the CT incendiary, because I want to gauge some people's takes, as well as maybe argue with you. We'll find out when we get to it. But all right, we have to get into the real show. The main meat and bones of our conversation is going to be the Blast Lisbon. Obviously, the big event, the one with all the classic teams. And we're going to start with the title, the headline, the big news piece. FaZe just can't seem to get the right map pick for EliGE, and it's becoming more than just a bit of a problem. It's becoming a legit issue. Honestly, I noticed it straight off the bat, when we had the Nuke picks early on, because Nuke was supposed to be, a FaZe map. EliGE comes in, he gets to pick his position, essentially, but still, he has to come in and play Nuke with them. It goes horribly. I don't think he records a strong map for about a month. And even then, it's against Saw, then Astralis. He has some pop-offs, but that's about it. Every time they pick into a difficult opponent, they need a big match, big map win. Nothing seems to work. Now they've kind of switched to Ancient. Ancient's supposed to be better. He's still having some really rough appearances on it. And I'm just wondering what's happened to EliGE, because they've made the concessions. Rain's playing some spots that he's not overly comfortable with. He's not exactly thriving in them. And EliGE just can't seem to make anything work. So I think FaZe have got a legit issue right now that's quite simply one man deep. They have other problems, obviously. Yeah. Brokey struggled to play himself into form. EliGE has been fine on maps they don't pick, weirdly enough. I think across the totality of the year, he's been stronger on maps they haven't picked and on decider maps. But yeah, Brokey's not been great. Frozen has been fine. And Rain is struggling to adapt to his new position. So I think the key problem that starts it all is the fact that EliGE just can't seem to get it right on the maps they pick. And it's just a bit odd, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's super strange. Making this change was always going to be a bit weird. It was always going to be a little bit of a headache, something you had to work through with. I think that was something we knew from the start, was that EliGE wasn't going to slot perfectly into Rops's spots.
No.
But like, it feels a little bit weird to not have this worked out by now. It's 3 months in, and they're very clever people. Almost everybody on FaZe. They should be able to work this out. But something is just not really quite working. So I'm wondering. I don't see a fix. I don't know what the I don't know what the fix would be. I'm assuming there is one, but they are really struggling with the map pool in particular. He's a liability in terms of map pool more than anything. Because right now, I think maybe the biggest issue FaZe have is that they don't have a confident map pool which they can play. Like they don't.
Yeah.
It would be an entirely different thing if they knew they could play Nuke and Ancient, and as long as they have one of those maps, they can probably put in their best effort. But right now, I don't think that's where they are right now.
I mean, their first wave banning Dust 2, second wave banning Mirage a fair amount. It depends on the opponent, obviously, but still, they are banning out those kinds of maps. I feel like, because against VP they're banning Train. I'm thinking, are they trying to play like 6 or 7 maps overall? Like they don't seem to have a perma right now, because they are banning based on their opponents. They're picking, well, whatever they pick, it doesn't seem to really vibe with EliGE specifically. It is a serious map pool problem. But I still think the progenitor of it isn't the team. It is this one-star player they're trying to make work, and it just isn't clicking.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to play a very deep map pool. Like, they used to play a 6 or 7 map pool. They always used to ban Vertigo, but then even when they were banning Vertigo, they started floating it a bit, and they started like doing some fun stuff on it, occasionally playing. Like, there's no. I feel like FaZe has never been a team who, they always have a pretty broad map pool, I feel like. But I think that might be to the detriment now that they're struggling to plug EliGE in. I think maybe it's better if they just try to find the maps which work and stick to them.
Yeah, I mean, they picked Anubis into Spirit, like just to highlight. They're trying everything. Strange. Like they're not even confident enough in their Ancient to challenge Spirit on it. They try to play Anubis instead. Oh, it's just a mess.
It's very strange. It's very strange indeed. I don't know what to do. I don't have enough of an eye on exactly what EliGE is doing to figure out what has to happen here. There's no reason why this should be happening, I don't think, with between Frozen and EliGE and Rain. I think that should be solid enough to make anything, like to fit something together. But it's just not happening right now.
Yeah, well, the thing is, if you look at, like, for example, the initial problem they have this year is that they try to play Nuke. EliGE has a mare just a mare on it. He doesn't know how he's playing it. He's playing terribly. If you look at his numbers, his overall fragging is horrible. His literal opening kill ratio is fine, though. And that's usually the big place where you say a player who's struggling to play Nuke, especially who's a EliGE style of player who gets to play towards Outer a lot. That's if he's struggling, you expect him to just be taking cheap deaths outside, not really understanding how to play it. He's getting all these opening kills, though. So, on the CT side, talking CT side here right now, he actually does horribly on the openings front. Not relevant. I think the problem is more once they are getting into the mid round, then late round, how they rotate, how he sets himself up for later fights. That might be the problem. He's not finding the synergy off of his teammates. So they try to switch to Ancient, which is a map where directly the opening fights almost seem to dictate everything. Like on the CT side, T side, you take the opening fights. If you win them, you've got such a bounty of space to play off of.
Yep.
It becomes a little easier in theory. I think he's done better on Ancient overall, and on CT side especially. So it hasn't been a terrible idea. It's just now that it's become a pick. They've played it against Astralis. They played it against Virtus Pro at this event. They lost it both times. He was terrible. Make it make sense, right? As soon as you start picking it, it turns to absolute dust. What's the matter? Like, how can this be possible?
It's an interesting thing, though, with how important the opening frag is. Ancient is the map, aside from Mirage, which they've only played 3 times, it's the map where they have the highest round win percent after having the first death. So they seem to claw back a lot of rounds. Every other map is around 25%, but this one they have 35% round wins after the first death.
Well, it has been probably their most successul map this year, because they won it, what?
Yeah.
6 times in a row to open up the year? And now they've lost it.
They've lost
3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as they start trying to pick it, as soon as they start leaning into it, it just goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super weird. I wonder. I feel like they could go back to Inferno. Inferno is a strong FaZe map. Has always been a strong Kerrigan map, Rain map. It hasn't been good this year, but I feel like maybe put your eggs in that basket, because Nuke is obviously not working for EliGE. I don't know.
Was working, now isn't.
Now isn't, yeah. And I feel like Complexity kind of liked Inferno a little bit as well. So maybe that's where you want to go.
Well, a map that he was pretty strong on last year with Complexity, if we're going to talk about Complexity specifically, I feel like their Anubis was solid. Like, am I going crazy? I feel like their Anubis was a solid map pick.
They played it quite a bit. Yeah, they played it quite a bit at least.
Yeah, he was 1.2 rated his entire tenure. Like, that was a strong map for him. I feel like that's a map, that's why they've started trying to, here and there pick it, because it feels like for him it's a comfort pick. But, well.
Yeah.
The rest of the team, I don't think, are necessarily that confident in it. And this year, it's not been a great start. Like, it really hasn't been. They've played it 5 times, lost it 4.
Yeah.
Of course, it suffers from the same FaZe picked it debuff that seems to be a common issue. Like, when they prep a map, they just can't play it.
Yeah. They lose their map pick, win the series. It's the old FaZe adage. Now they can't win the series, though. But they're still losing their map picks.
Yeah. I think a lot of blame will be thrown at other players, and I think that'd be a bit of a mistake. I feel like people are going to be like, oh, Brokey's had a bad year. If only Brokey was good, we'd be fine.
Not fine. You'd probably be better. You'd probably be in a better position. I mean, yeah, it is a problem when you have EliGE and he's dropping 10 frags in a, 21 round game. That's bad.
It's horrible, and it's not like we've had a massive decrease. Well, look, as we've always said, Frozen gets his numbers no matter what, right? Like, that's always been the case. He's always going to get that that sort of 1.10 minimum. But if you look at specifically that Cluj Poker, Katowice, the fragging output from Frozen is strong. You have other players stepping up. You just don't have that key star rifler who's the one you do design your game plan around. So I think that's the problem. The one when they're hardcore setting up their game plan, they've got this all figured out. EliGE doesn't get it right. And I think it kind of has to be laid at his feet, because he is too much of a veteran with too many priorities, too good a player mechanically to not deliver when the team sets him up like this. I think it's an outright EliGE problem. Yeah,
it is. It is an EliGE problem. He's probably one of the biggest problems on the team. Also does feel bad when, your Opper doesn't drop more than 13 frags in an overtime map.
Yeah,
that's obviously also a problem.
Yeah, Brokey's been hit and miss, to put it.
He has been bad. Yeah, I mean, you fix the EliGE problem, you have a slightly smaller problem to fix next. It's not a.
The problem is, for most of 2024, he's not great either, Brokey. But towards the end, they're still able to, like, with a 1.00 rated a Brokey, like, just straight flatline average, like, player rating. They still finish second at Major. Like, it's clear that rifle play can carry you to great depths in CS2. Yeah. They just don't have the key rifler stepping up right now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they got to fix that for the next event.
Yeah. How long a break are they taking between events this time? Is it going to be another 3 months before we see them again, or are they actually playing the next one?
2 weeks, because they are playing the next one, but it's in 2 weeks.
All right, good. All right, you've put a point in here that's definitely incredibly wrong, but I'm going to let you make it. 9 is not the GOAT. I don't know why you said 9 might be the GOAT, but let's talk about this Huns team, this little run, that highlight. Because those of you who have seen the interview with Sembler on my channel, members only, of course, will have listened to a conversation we had about highlights and how they just don't hit the same. They just don't exist in the same way they used to. Obviously, specifically, we talk about his most iconic call, I think, is fair to say. The call I remember most vividly, happy with 1dig. If you don't have to say much more than that. Everyone knows happy with 1dig. We just don't get that kind of highlight anymore because of how the game's been polished up and how there's only so much you can do when people play properly. And then we literally 2 days later get this highlight, the highlight of all highlights. In terms of Deagle play. Absolutely insane from 9. The problem is, though, it's just a clip.
Gameplay technically wise, this 9 clip is probably a better clip than the happy clip, I'd say.
In theoretical CS terms, yes.
It's a 1v4,
isolates angles better. He does like a lot of things really well. He doesn't just re-peek one angle and just keep hitting headshots because the other players are just too stupid to change the angle.
Because Happy gets 2 or 3 lucky frags. It's lucky frags through a smoke. It's a good pre-aim, but it's luck that somebody's actually standing behind the smoke. He spams Dupree down, and it's not even in a particularly tense situation. I mean, it's like a 5-on-4 or a 4-on-5 or something like that. 4-on-5 it probably would have been. 9 gets it he gets 4 1digs, incredibly skillful to begin with. They're very nicely spaced, paced. He very nicely peaks the angles perfectly. It's a 1-on-4 clutch on map point. Like, this is it's
an insane clip.
It is probably, if this was a simple clip 5 years ago, it would probably be the best clip of all time.
No, because we have multiple Deagle aces from Nico.
True.
Like, great Deagle clips have existed for years and years and years. The point of we were having, though, is like, we had these clips, but it felt like in the 2020s we started seeing less and less of it because players just played better and better. Trading was sharper, positioning was, I guess, thought about more aggressively. Like, we should be spacing like this. We should have... We go for more double swings, avoid just 1-by-1 peaks. That clip does have a fair amount of players being isolated on angles that can be, picked off 1-by-1. It's nowhere near as egregious as, for example, the TSM Happy Deagle clip, but it's still a problem. So we were just discussing that idea, and then 2 days later we get that highlight, ridiculous highlight, and 9 across the entire event puts up ridiculous numbers. I mean, when I watch the Huns, I'm not expecting him to play well. I'm just not expecting to see this level from 9. You know what I mean? Like, he's a talented guy, has been for a while. But I'm not expecting him at 26 to all of a sudden walk into Tier 1 play for the second time ever and just absolutely obliterate people with a Deagle of all weapons.
He was winning quite a lot of rounds against Spirit, and he was pretty much single-handedly taking the first Falcons map into a place where they could have won it. It was an overtime loss. But he drops a 120 average in. This would be his first big event, I think. I wonder if maybe on a technicality, it was his first big event. He's played a couple of local lands, but he's never played anything even remotely close to this in his career. Not even online. I think he played the RMRs and everything when it was 2020, but it was like all Asian, and they never made it to the.
Oh, he played the PGL Antwerp Challenger stage with IHC.
Challenger stage?
Yeah, he made challenges at Antwerp. Lost to Complexity and
Wow.
Astralis, beat Renegades, then lost to Imperial.
Damn, I feel like bewildered over the fact that I didn't know what this IHC roster was.
Yeah, Blitz, Score, Cabal, Techno, and 9.
Crazy. I feel like I was all over this team when.
I mean, this is 2022,
happened.
dude. This is way before they
Yeah,
broke out
but
fully.
they were good back then. Anyway, that's insane. I didn't know about that. Anyway, yeah, no, but like, yeah, he's pulling out an insane performance, and he's how old is he?
26.
Yeah, it's a little bit too late, unfortunately. If this was 5 years earlier, I would have said slot him into MongolZ the second somebody underperforms. Sounds good, but no. Yeah, it's kind of cool that we have this second Mongolian team, because it was maybe supposed to be Atox, but it's very clearly not happening now. But it's cool that we have another one, and even Chinggis Warriors are technically still higher rated than them on the VRS. It's probably going to change once the event ends, because
that was one of the big shocks as well. Is just that the Huns qualified here, because they have not been the second best Mongolian team, for the last sort of year or so, or 6 months, or whatever you want to call it. Like, they end up coming in as a replacement rather than actually being the main team, because Atox get removed.
Yeah.
But no, it's been an interesting scene to follow.
Yeah.
Just recently. And the fact that they've showed up and they've not won anything in that sense, but they've actually put on a show is a lot of fun. It's a fun thing to watch, like just them putting on a show. I do think the reason we don't end up seeing like 9 playing on the Mongols, or never will likely, is probably because he has too many of his own ideas. He's 26, he calls for this team as well. That team is a very strict sort of pyramid, sort of the way decisions are made, the way things should be done. It's decided at the top. And yeah, bringing a player like 9 who's clearly going to want to have his say and be towards the top of that pyramid is not going to be a thing I think Mara and Blitz want to get behind at this point. They've done too much with their own way of thinking and way of playing to ever allow that to happen again.
Yeah, they're also very much on the whole, like on the idea of having a young squad. I think they made it, that was pretty clear when they replaced, I think it would have been when they replaced Bartek, and they brought in Mezzinho, and they brought in Mezzinho, side note, little brother of Bartek. It must be cool for them to be at the same event.
Yeah, I mean, the reason they do that sort of thing, though, is also not just because they want their team to have, like, chubbier cheeks. It is because they want to mold players to their style of play, like, develop them in their own image, essentially.
They brought in Mezzinho in 9-10. Mezzinho was 15, I think, when that transfer happened. And 9-10...
Was he about to turn 16? Because he has to be 16 to play most events. So
yeah, he was about to turn 16, but I think he was 15 when they signed him. Yeah. Basically the first time. Yeah, when they Bartek and Annihilation, they dropped for 9-10 and Mezzinho. And Mezzinho at that time would have been 15, yeah. Yeah, they want to mold them into a particular style of play, as you said. So they don't want to go for a player like 9. But yeah, I was pretty high on this Huns team when they formed, because almost exclusively because they had Score, and I still feel like Score is a better player than his achievements give him credit for. Not knowing anything behind the scenes, but I remember on that IHC team he was insane. It was kind of, we were all a bit surprised when he got removed from that IHC team randomly, and since then it's been nothing. He was on the international Tai Lu lineup. He was on the Huns, and that didn't really work out. He was on Atox, and that didn't really work out. And now he's on Eruption, and so far that hasn't really worked out.
But in terms of winning events, it hasn't. He's fragging out.
No.
Like, what more can you do? He is playing with 3 people in no picture and Fury 5k. Like, come on, lads. Let's can't expect too much.
Coach, be strong.
Should tell that to the team. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Huns, an interesting little run. Honestly, mostly just a highlight clip is what the Huns run was. I did have Cobra on my fantasy team just because I was like, he's cheap. He'll probably get some headshots. So I can put headshot roll on him. See how that goes. It didn't go very far, but it could have been a lot worse in terms of cheap players. Yep. Only -8 from my budget pick. But yeah, that's an interesting little run. A little storyline we've got to follow. But let's talk about something more important. We do have, I think, a bit of an olive branch to offer out to the team that are going to take the most abuse from this event, probably. Although, I don't know, I think the scene kind of has slowed down, almost forgotten that they hate Astralis. But I think they did come into this event looking a little sloppy, a little not as well prepped as they could have been, and not as sharp as they could have been. But at the same time, they weren't given any layups. Let's put it that way. They did play a FaZe that, whilst we have been critical of, are still FaZe. They're still not that terrible. It's a team they've beaten not too long ago, and the last time we actually saw them. But it's still a solid roster who are expected to make playoffs at big events. Astralis themselves, coming off of their hiatus, they have to open up with a Vitality series.
Yep.
Big shock. They didn't recover from that. They got absolutely pounded. Had to play FaZe, got pounded.
They got 13-0 the last time they played them as well.
Yeah, so I just want to say, Astralis didn't play as terrible as the abuse they're about to receive is going to imply. Because they are definitely going to get the shit ripped out of them for it.
Yeah, they already have. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that if they'd played a Falcons, if they played a Huns, if they played a lot of other teams, they could have been better. Yeah, Free Stare, I am on that boat as well. I do think Stare is one of the few players outplaying their roles on this Astralis team.
Actually,
or at least living up to them.
Distinctly non-freed at this point because he just extended his contract.
Yeah, he just extended his contract. So
yeah,
the Danish are still in the cult of Astralis. Like, I must play for Astralis. Ooh, like, why? Why, bro?
I think it might be the same idea as like I could win the Premier League with Manchester United. I think it might be that idea that like yeah, it might be horrible, but they have this idea that winning something with Astralis would trump everything bad, whichever happens.
Why though? That's what I don't get.
No idea.
It never makes sense to me, players in sports who want to go win something with a team that's already won a bunch of stuff. It's like, you understand.
Yeah.
You could be another player in the history of a great team, or you could be the god emperor of an entire city. Kof, Napoli, Maradona. Like, you could be the king of an entire city. Why would you want to be like another just guy in the history of a club that already buys every other guy? Like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
Zero understanding of greatness, these people, I swear.
Yeah, it's like you could be self-made and you could do this on your own, and instead you feel like I have to do it with Astralis. It's very weird. Very strange.
Frustrating. But yeah, I do think they are going to be going into the next event. What is it they're playing?
Go in the Prem
Bucharest.
with like Burnley. If there was a good football player who was like, I want to win the Prem with Burnley, I would really respect that.
Yeah, there's limits to how much you can take in terms of salary cut to go in the Prem.
Like Victor Gyökeres just goes, nah, fuck Sporting. I'm done with the Portuguese league. And no, I'm not going to Arsenal. I'm not going to Chelsea. I'm going to Burnley, and I'm gonna destroy the.
I mean, that's still going to be a pay rise, but like the amount of money he leaves on the table by doing that, there's no way.
Yeah.
Burnley. Come on.
Burnley's first 120 million euro transfer.
Yeah. But yeah, look, the next event Astralis play, they are playing in Bucharest. And there's none of the top three there, at least not according to any rankings, really. But there are a bunch of teams that they're going to actually play better against, and they will win. Like, if this group stage, Blast Open, was a Swiss, I think they go 2-3. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about how, if they just won this key series, these key rounds. Instead, we're just talking about a team that got annihilated off of a month break where they didn't seemingly prac. Sure, it's a waste. Sure, we still should critique them. But I don't think they're as bad as they're going to be made out to be.
This is mostly the same teams they played in Cluj, where they made top 3, which is good. But if this is the only event where they can do good this season, like come summertime, we are going to put a huge asterisk on them no matter how many top 3 positions they end up getting. Because it's going to be, okay, so you played Falcons, and you played 3D Max, and you played Pain, and you played Gamer Legion, and you played Virtus Pro, and you played Furia. It's just going to be that same sort of bracket of teams, and that's going to put a huge asterisk on them. So they could really use a better performance at one of these bigger events. This is studio as well, so
yeah, they definitely could. But that actually brings up a question that I I think we need to answer it.
Mm.
What does it even mean to be top 3? If an event like Bucharest, if like the event just gone in Cluj-Napoca, do they count as big events by like our HLTV metrics that we usually follow? And if so, what does top 3 at that event even really mean? If they are classed as big events, and when we come to the end of year discussion, we talk about big event ratings, who played well at these big events, big event playoffs. If events that are missing like the top 3 teams every time are classed as big events by HLTV, what does being top 3 in that even really count for anymore? Like, do we end up with this very weird selective count of what events are and aren't? Or are we just going to have to be like 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th? We're there, I guess. And all of a sudden, everything's validated. I think we're going to have a very awkward discussion come end of year.
Yeah, this is what the bronze, silver, gold distinctions mean when we end up doing the year-end rankings.
Yeah, but those are for MVPs. They're not necessarily for just every big event.
No, most bronze events are not big events. I think there might be exceptions. I know that Cluj-Napoca was an edge case specifically because of the opposition. I think Bucharest is technically going to count as a big event, but I'm not sure because it has the same level of opposition, but it's not in front of a crowd. So I'm assuming, and also Malbs aren't there. That's probably makes a big difference. This Bucharest event could be a non-big event. So
yeah, because Cluj-Napoca, it's a silver MVP.
Yeah, but they had Malbs who were a step above, some of the other teams there. Malbs aren't there now in Bucharest. It's also a studio event in Bucharest, which Cluj wasn't. It actually had an arena section. So that could be a non-big event because I know Cluj was an edge case. I think Striker posted on Twitter literally asking, "Do you think this should be a big event or a small event?" And yeah, I'm not sure that decided it, but I think they asked. I know they were a little bit on the edge of that, I think. But yeah, I actually have to check. Have Astralis even committed going to Yalla Compass as well? Because I
have no idea.
Yeah, that's preliminary. Okay, because it depends on the regional qualifiers. Because the Yalla event in Qatar, where Astralis are also going to be, which is also like they're the second best team there, I think. That also hinges on if they get the MRQ spot, because then they can't play because they have to play the MRQ because it overlaps. So that's not even guaranteed. But yeah, that's also a little bit of a goofy event, Mickey Mouse event, in this context.
Tunnel 5 VP Astralis 3 Max MIBR Pain 6 qualifier spots. What do you mean? It's basically the major, dude.
Yeah. Honestly, okay, I'm gonna say though, if Astralis end up only being good in this tier of events, a little bit Mickey Mouse, a little bit where the top 5 are missing for this season, I'd say that's still a pretty good spot to be in terms of the ability to make something happen in the fall season. It's not.
What do you expect to get better though? Because we have seen this roster together for Lord knows how long. Like, what is going to get better?
I don't think you can get much better. I think Cadian has a fundamental incompatibility with the way Device likes to play, for example. I think you're really going to have to change Device to make him fit to how Astralis, to how Cadian wants to play, or vice versa. And either way, that's just a recipe. That's not going to work out. You're losing the good parts of both players if that happens. I think Astana Yabi, something's not working out there. Stair, Free Stair, he's doing a solid job, but that's also the case for 80% of every single failing roster, which is supposed to be good, is that the support player is better than expected. So, it's not a huge deal, but it's compared to where I think they were last year, compared to where I think they were when Device was trying to call. I think being good in events with worse opposition is at least a pretty good starting point to, if they're competent, which they aren't, they could take a step to try to reach that upper layer of competition from that springboard. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
They have the players for it. They have the players for it. The reality of it. They have the players to go do something. And based on what we've seen historically, the problem is, that Cadian Device connection just really doesn't exist.
Oh.
Not at all. And Cadian is a bot-ass rifler. Like, let's be clear.
He is. This
He
was
is
red.
horrible.
This was like crystal clear red by everybody the second he joined Astralis to rifle. Because like I remember seeing the tweet the same day as the announcement. I can't remember if it was Pimp or Maui or someone. They checked out the Skybox stats for him. And they were like, oh yeah, on Heroic, Cadian had a 1.1 something with the op. He had a 1.09 average or something overall. And then he had a 0.85 rifle average, like rifle rating in rounds where he wasn't using the op. Case in point. Like
that's pretty horrible.
It was never going to work. So
yeah, his weapon performance this year. Let's see. This is gonna be interesting. Oh my god, he's a 0.78 rated player with an AK.
Yeah,
a 1.17 rated player with an M4. And before you think, oh, that's not bad. Comparison in terms of the average, what you'd expect from a player on an M4A1S in the top 5 is about 1.36.
Yeah.
So he's far below that as well. Yeah, no, he's been absolutely dog. He's not even good with an MP9.
Yeah, and it's not even a good way to fix it because you obviously don't want to make Device a rifler. And you obviously don't want to throw the op back to Cadian in favor of Device.
Yeah.
So there has to be a transfer, and it's...
I mean, if only there was a Danish IGL. If only there was... I mean, he doesn't have to be, like, that great. He just has to be, good enough to win multiple prestige events in a year. I mean, if only there was one like that available somewhere.
If only.
Only. No, I guess, again, there's no real solutions. Guess we have to keep doing this. Never mind. Never mind. No such solution exists.
Go international.
We'll just get a Swedish guy and make him chew something while he speaks, and there you go. Like,
yeah, perfect. There's no talent in Denmark.
Clearly.
Sign Jonas Gundersen, and he can fix Denmark.
Anyway. Vitality are up 1 map against Malbs in the background. I realize we have timed today's show horribly in terms of there's actually real Counter-Strike going on today. As much as it's a decider game, it is still a real game. So, yeah, those of you watching that... Yeah,
they started very awkwardly in the middle of the week. So they played...
Yeah, they're ending the group stage Monday and then retaking the playoffs like Friday?
Yeah, Friday. But I guess that might be a logistics thing. But they also had very, very inconsequential games for the weekend. Because you had... Yeah, I guess on the Friday you had some pretty good like playoff qualifying games. But then you also had like the lower semi-final on the Sunday when everybody's watching. Okay. Anyway, I guess it's just a logistics thing. Next weekend is going to be the big weekend. Yeah,
they expect the actual playoffs to pull in the big numbers, the big views. Funnily enough, we had a classic case of 1 viewer counting on the actual stream, 6 people watching in the pub yesterday as I was watching Furia M80, pumping my fist violently every time M80 won a round. It wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, Saturday. I forget Sunday kind of happened. But yeah, Saturday afternoon. Not to sound like too much of a degenerate, but it was like 3 o'clock, and I was 3 beers deep. But it's fine. It's cool.
Yep.
I didn't drive, so I was responsible.
Oh.
Yeah, I also don't have a car, but that's not relevant. And I didn't eat any kebabs, so it's great. But no, I was in the pub with 4 friends. We were watching it, and then just 2 people came over and was like, oh, is that the Counter-Strike? I love G2! And sits down to watch. So we had a bunch of drunk people watching it with us. Yeah, go M80. Thank you for eliminating Furia. Spirit and VP and MongolZ and G2 for playoffs. Yes, the big games for today.
Happening today.
Let's make predictions. Let's do like this is bootleg double swing for the maps that actually count. Be my Yumi. Who have you got winning what game, and give us exact scorelines as well.
Okay, I'll take a second here because I need to think about the veto for.
All right. Whilst you talk about this, I will yap. So whilst you think, I'll yap. Because look, Virtus Pro have been surprisingly okay. Not great. Their Vitality loss was horrendous, and the fact that it took them that long to beat Falcons is a bit of a downer relative to the high they should be on, given how well they played against, well, how well you thought they should be playing after that FaZe win. Like, you see them beat FaZe, that 13-0 Dust 2, like, oh crap, VP here to play. Turns out they are very much in flux. It's violently dependent on how effective Flammus can be. And he was good enough to win against Falcons, but you saw against Vitality, absolutely nothing going. Just a complete non-starter. So if they are able to match in terms of Flammus can actually win some big duels against the likes of Donk, they do have the breadth of firepower to potentially, I think, sneak a win against Spirit. I don't think they actually will. I do think that Donk's just going to donk them. But they are not. They're not going to be consistent, I think, throughout the rest of the year. They haven't been so far. And this game is going to be Flammus dependent to the maximum. The other game is MongolZ G2. G2 just about took it over the line against M80, with m0NESY putting up a 1.8 rating. So, m0NESY in his simple era is not ending. Like, he's in his Kenny S on Titan era. He's in his prime carry position where he's got, somehow, his team look like bums. They shouldn't. We know who they are. I mean, Heavy God, Malbs MD. These guys are big-time fraggers. Hunter's had an incredible career in CS2. Oh, Go, sorry. Hasn't really managed to make things work. This team should be stronger, especially on the fragging front. But he has to really lift a lot of weight for them to actually get anywhere. I think they're going to get blown away. I think MongolZ are the far stronger team in terms of top to bottom, their players. They call better. We saw it against M80. The G2 T-side game plan can very quickly get lazy, sloppy, repetitive, just unimaginative at times. Like, they're putting in the minimal effort into actually planning the round out or thinking about how they're actually going to execute it. It's just, we called an A-rush, it worked, let's call an A-rush again. Like, bro, really?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the sort of thing that happens far too often on G2. And yeah, Mongols just don't have the same problems. They don't have a player who's a weak fragger, honestly. Even the players who don't put up great fragging numbers are incredibly sharp. Like the Technos, the Mazzinios. Hell, now that Blitz has given over more and more to Senzu, he's getting less and less fragging opportunities, but he's still incredibly sharp. So Mongols do not have, I think, as clear a weak point that G2 do in terms of their players, the game plan, everything else. G2 are just relying on m0NESY to do some heroics, absolute heroics. And if they can get some sort of output from Malbs MD to go with Heavy God as well on the rifles, they might have a chance to take a map and make it close enough on another one for them to maybe squeeze it out. You know, keep it close so that the miracles get them through to the end. But in reality, it should be a Mongols crushing 2-0. Everyone doing their job. And the Mongols make another big event playoffs. Let's see what happens, though. What is your prediction?
I've looked at this. The veto for VP Spirit is a little bit interesting because they have VP are very good on Spirit's permaban, which is Nuke, and sorry, the other way around. It's Inferno, and Spirit is very good on VP's permaban, which is Nuke. And then I don't really have any big reads on what they might pick. I feel like Spirit are VP are pretty comfortable on Dust 2. And Spirit are probably going to pick Dust 2. So I'll say VP could probably sneak a map win there. If the right circumstances happen, they could probably sneak a map win on one of the maps because they're pretty comfortable on Ancient, they're pretty comfortable on Dust 2. They're pretty bad on Anubis. So that could also be a pretty good Spirit pick. Either way, could be interesting. I think VP might sneak a map win, but I'll say it's going to be a 2-0 for Spirit. That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Might narrow maps, I think. VP, even with Electronic, I think they're going to have some pretty narrow scorelines. So I'm thinking maybe like a 13-9, 13-10, somewhere like that. For MongolZ G2, it's actually pretty interesting because we had this game in ESL Pro League just a couple of weeks ago. And G2 won the first map, and then Mongols had that 2-11 to 16-12 Dust 2 win. And then they closed out Mirage 13-10. So Mongols definitely took over that game. It was just, it happened at the halfway point instead of at the start.
Yeah, I think a key detail to point out about that match, though, not only is it a m0NESY mega carry, there's also a huge performance out of Malbs MD required. Like, he carries them through Ancient. He has some insane T-side numbers for the entire like 3 maps. So does m0NESY. But then also on CT side, he's one of the few G2 players who actually kept it going. So I think G2 are going to need more than just m0NESY if they want to recreate at least something similar to that match. Because that match, could have gone either way.
Yeah.
But at this event, from what we've seen great m0NESY stuff. We've seen nothing out of Malbs MD. And that's basically our next topic. Like, our next topic is entirely just Malbs has been horrible this event. What's going on? Because if we're looking at this team, we're talking about G2 being obviously it's m0NESY's team in terms of, like, he's the big star, he's the big name. But this year, post-Nico, it's been very up and down for Malbs. And Pro League, I thought, was a step in the right direction. At least for the majority of games, he played to the level I expected. It's just in the final Malbs series, he just completely lets himself down, lets the team down, and they just go out with a whimper. But I did think this Malbs MD sort of resurgence was coming due to that Pro League run. Instead, Jesus. At Lisbon, he's been horrible. Well, he's not in Lisbon yet, but it's the Lisbon event. He's had 2 good maps out of 6. Just disappointing. Just really disappointing. And I think it goes back to the issue I talked about last week, so I won't reiterate too much, but, like, he's not Nico. Everyone, including himself, needs to stop trying to make Malbs Nico. Let Malbs play the way that Malbs can play, like the way that's effective for him, rather than trying to shoehorn in these, like, thinking man CS. Oh, I got to be like Nico. I got to take my time, actually try a lurk here and then, and try to do this high IQ, like, sort of. No, just be explosive, bang heads. Right? You got enough, like, old men who can hold the shift key. Like, let them do that. Just hold W, shoot heads. That's what you've done so well up to this point. And that's not trying to be reductionist or trying to, like, denigrate the playstyle. It's the playstyle of the season. It's the meta. It's how you should be playing. And it's what you do well. Just go back to playing that way. It's frustrating to watch a static, stagnant Malbs underperform again and again.
Yeah, I'm going to say MongolZ take that 2-0. But I'm also thinking at least one of the maps isn't a blowout. I don't think it's a huge blowout. At least one of them.
Yeah, what kind of maps are you expecting to come out in that game?
I'm thinking, look, the thing, when I was looking at the video, I was like, okay, so MongolZ have a pretty obvious ban here. They can ban Dust 2 because that's, like, a strong map for pretty strong map for G2. But then I looked at the past game they played, and they let, because they have the same permaban. So I figured, MongolZ can float train because G2 are going to ban it, and then they can ban Dust 2 instead because they should have the first ban. But then I actually looked at the game they played, and they didn't ban Dust 2. They actually played Dust 2, and they were going to lose it. And that would have been a 2-0 loss, but then they won it. They clawed it back. So I have no idea. MongolZ don't really have a weak point. I'm assuming we get to see Mirage as the third. I think Ancient might be in there as well. Probably Inferno. It's probably going to be one of the maps as well. So some classic maps. Or Dust 2, because I wouldn't have put Dust 2 here if I was MongolZ. I would have banned it, but. Apparently they didn't think so 3 weeks ago, so why would they now?
Okay. Yeah, I think Dust 2 is a map that opens the door for G2. I mean, if you look at G2 and MongolZ as, like, a map stats sort of pie chart that HLTV provides, they're very similar teams. They're both pretty shite at Nuke. They're both okay, like, to good on Inferno and Dust 2. It's just that the other maps that they both play, MongolZ are just better at. So Mirage, Anubis, and Ancient especially. Ancient being a map you'd expect a team like G2 to want to play. MongolZ are just better at it. So interesting to see where this veto is actually going to end up going. I do think no matter what happens, I have MongolZ winning. But G2 could maybe edge an Inferno, or if they do lose 2-0, you're right, there will be one map where G2 find a way to win 10, 11 rounds.
Yeah.
Especially with this form of m0NESY, like a 1.8 rated m0NESY, yeah, you'll probably be close to winning a map or two. And that's the advantage. If you're a bad IGL or a bad team, if you've got one player who can do that, all of a sudden you can fluke a couple wins and be like, oh, look, I made top 4. Oh, I guess I'm just really good at my job. Right.
Yep.
But you're not. You suck. Anything else we want to talk about in terms of Blast Lisbon currently? Because I'm just checking the show notes. We've got nothing else written down. It's a pretty short list.
It's not a lot of other talking points. I think Falcons performed as expected. VP have overperformed, but I feel like if they go limp against Spirit today, it's a bit all for nothing because they didn't really play opposition that I would have said was unbeatable, or rather win any of those games. Because they went limp against Vitality, they beat Falcons, and they beat FaZe, winnable games. If they, it's a 13-0 is obviously a bit unexpected, but that's also the kind of collapse I feel like you get out of FaZe sometimes. Then the rest of the teams, I don't know. Na'Vi should have lost to MongolZ, but they pulled it back through JL multi-kills and pretty much nothing else. Liquid looked
Wait. You're telling me Na'Vi won a game because JL made some miracles happen?
Yeah, it was miracle rounds.
Impossible, I don't believe it. They're the greatest team ever assembled. What are you talking about?
At the end of Mirage, the only thing keeping Na'Vi alive in that game was that MongolZ was winning the opening frag pretty much every time. Ima was getting nothing done, and the Lexi B was alone lurking in mid pretty much every single T-side round. And then JL would just crack bomb sites open with a 3K. And honestly, they should have even lost the final round. It was a 2v2, and it was kind of infuriating that 9-10 takes a peek he shouldn't have, puts Blitz in a pretty much unwinnable 1-on-2. Not unwinnable, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a classic one where if you just look at the series stats, you're like, what do you mean JL? Everyone got 37 to 47 frags. It was a team effort. Yeah. And you look at just Mirage, you're like, oh shit. Maybe he's got a point. And you look at the highlights, it's like JL, AK, 4 headshots on the A bonsai offense. Yeah. Like, maybe Quack is right. Maybe it was just a JL miracle. But that was my point on the Power 10. I was like, they still look like that sort of team where it's JL miracle in the big tough game, or you're going to lose it. Like when you're playing the other top 4 level team, you don't have the individuals. It needs to be a JL miracle. And he doesn't have enough to win another major, another prestige event. There's not another run like that insane performance from last year. Which again, as much as you want to like, people want to hype up parts of Na'Vi, and I think a lot of the time overhype. There's no denying that's one of the most MVP runs we've ever seen out of JL. That was so nasty.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the sort of stuff they need to win events. It's not sustainable. And do you think they're winning Blast Open? Do you think they have a shot at winning Blast Open?
No. Because look, in playoffs at some point they have to play this team called Vitality, and they're gonna get smashed. I assume. Look, if they finish second in their group today, they probably have to play Vitality in the semi. If they finish third, they can maybe avoid Vitality till the grand final. And then potentially Spirit takes care of Vitality in the semi on Saturday. So there is ways for them to potentially get into a final at least, and not have to play Vitality and maybe win an event through avoiding Vitality. Because look, Spirit are more volatile, more likely to have the up to go and beat Vitality, but also far more likely to have the low to go and lose to Na'Vi. So I think there are ways, technically, they could go and win this. Yeah. I just think more than likely, as long as nothing happens that we don't expect, they will have to play Vitality and they will lose that series. I do want to touch on something because this is going to be probably one of our very first instances of a petty grievances type take from the classic by the numbers segments. But so I put out a tweet. It was a quote tweet of a quote from one of the M80 guys. I can't remember who. I think it was Rec, saying how when we play our A game, we can beat any team, essentially. So I quote tweeted that with a GIF just saying lie, because fuck off, no you can't. You don't have an A game that beats Vitality. You'd need an S triple plus miracle from God to beat Vitality or Spirit. Or most teams actually at the top, because you couldn't even beat G2, and you played fairly well relative to yourselves in that game. But someone replied to that, essentially saying, any team can beat any team. It's Counter-Strike. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
But that's kind of just reinforcing your point, though, because I think that, I mean, no, they don't mean to, but they are accidentally. Because what Rick is saying is that, yeah, you probably can beat anyone if they play poorly. Like,
No, but more importantly, look,
if the opposition plays poorly, you can probably beat them. Like, in a lot of the cases.
the problem is this kind of thing where it's like, I'm going to read you the exact quote. We literally know that anyone can beat anyone in CS. This is the response to me. If someone couldn't beat someone, they'd be getting 30 node every map. That's not happening. So what the fuck us this tweet? Assuming that means is. Motherfucker, if you literally believe that anyone can, and therefore by extension will, beat anyone, bet on the underdog every time. All your life savings.
Yeah.
But you won't, because you're an idiot, because you know that's not the case. You know that there are abhorrent flukes that happen where a crazy underdog wins. But if Vitality couldn't beat certain teams every time, in a best of 3, they wouldn't be Vitality.
Yep.
They'd be the Huns. But they're not. They're not going to lose to M80 with anywhere near the necessary frequency for this idea to be worth fucking, like, keeping in one's head. Like, understand that. That path leads only to madness.
Yeah.
Do not think like that.
It's like, Vitality could lose to M80, but what it hinges on isn't that M80 play their A game. They could play their B or C or D game.
Yeah.
What leads to that loss is no matter how poorly M80 are playing, if Vitality play their absolute horrible worst game ever, they could lose to M80. It's not.
Yeah, if ZywOo gets
M80,
shot before the game, and then everyone else is like with just blood on their fans, like, what the fuck's going on? Like, yeah, sure, M80 could probably win.
Yeah, M80 aren't in control in that game, even if they win. That's they're not in control of winning that. It's Vitality losing to themselves.
But even then, it's a redundant idea to discuss that literally anyone can beat anyone. Because, no, they literally can't. We don't see that happen. We see very predictable patterns of teams playing each other and the better team who plays better Counter-Strike winning.
Yeah.
Why do we even entertain this notion? So no, bullshit, M80, you can't beat anyone. And person who responded to me, change your view on the world.
The entire point is like... The entire point is like, oh, what if everything is a simulation? Yeah, who cares? Like, what is... It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
No, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's because it's a point which is maybe technically true. Pretty much anybody could lose to pretty much anybody if extraordinary circumstances happen and extraordinary under/over performances happen. Pretty much anything could happen. But it doesn't. So, like, what's the point? There's no difference if that's true or not. Like, there's no difference.
Sure.
We're still not gonna see Vitality lose to an intermediate team. It could happen. But like, yeah, it could happen. It just doesn't really matter. It just doesn't really matter. Because I'm somebody when I say these things, this could happen, this could happen. I mean within a shred of feasibility that it could happen. I don't mean anything could happen. Like anything could happen. But
dude, like, my Sunday League team could beat Real Madrid. They could all twist their ankle walking onto the field, and then forfeit the game because they have no more players because they can't make enough subs.
Yeah.
Good.
It's the same thing as if you say, what if everything is a simulation? Well, what does it matter to you if everything is a simulation? It's the same. Everything is the same whether you think it's a simulation or not. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's... Yeah. It's
absurd fucking side trail we've gotten ourselves into. But
the other week I floated the idea of having I've stolen this from FP1 Will in Formula 1 YouTuber world. Bell end of the week where we put out a bit of a comment who we think were the stupidest of the week and we put them up on the show. And I feel like this would have been a good idea at this point.
Bell end of the week is this tweet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, it's not called Bell end. Let's just call them misguided. Just misguided. Just misguided.
Yeah. Child left behind.
Okay. Let's talk. We got our small site retakes. Little petty points. Well, these aren't petty. They're just smaller in size.
Yeah.
I'm going to lead this one because I put up a poll this morning, specifically to gauge public opinion, and I'm now going to argue against it just for the shits and giggles. Sorry, I feel like I need to sneeze. There we go. And I'm kind of going to try and play devil's advocate as to why everyone's wrong about the CT molly. But in reality, my opinion is, obviously, that the CT molly is shit and needs to be changed. But, so I put this out. I said, the incendiary, aka CT Molotov, should, and then I gave 4 options. Do more damage, spread over a larger area, do more damage, and spread over a larger area, stay the same. Now, obviously, I could have put in a point there as well about changing the price, but it's a poll on YouTube. I only get like 4 or 5 options, so I just stuck to, if it's the same price, if we stick to the time-old tradition of Counter-Strike having CT things be more expensive, that's going to work. Because, they've got to factor in, the CTs, they're run by governments, the middlemen, all the bureaucrats. There's all that incompetence and fraud and greed needs to be factored in, of course. It makes sense. Very few people believe it should stay the same. Got 7% for that vote. 43% of people, the majority in this vote, says do more damage and spread over a larger area. And I honestly, look, here's time to argue against this. When Counter-Strike currently looks slightly T-sided, well, it looks quite T-sided, the immediate reaction to try and buff something that was nerfed because it was too oppressive for the CT side, I think is short-sighted. I do think that the way to change the game is, rather than throwing a carpet of fire that kills people in half a second, it should rather be an attempt to put more power and impetus into the CT hands via adjusting mechanics or changing maps to stop them being so T-dominant. I would prefer to see an adjustment to player movements and models. I'd rather see an adjustment to the engine itself to change the way peaking works, and peaking is currently powered. I'd rather see changes more to that ilk, and more in that sort of frame of mind than this. I'd rather see T-spawns delayed than see the CT Molotov itself actually get massively overpowered. These are the kinds of ideas I'd float forward if I wanted to actually address the CT problems. Because sure, a more powerful, wider spreading Molotov would afford more CT map control. Because at the end of the day, we do see periods or maps right now where if you see a CT Molotov, you just push it. I'm sorry, like Inferno Banana, if you throw a Molotov that lands at my feet as I'm running, I'm not going to stop or try and go back. I'm just going forward. If I'm rushing B on an Ancient and you throw a molly, I'm going straight through it. The urge or the need for that counter smoke currently really isn't there, because you're just going to go through it and try to catch the player trying to get his gun back out. Rather, it'd make more sense that I can throw that Molotov, it lands and explodes, then someone needs to go through the entire damn thing if they want to try and do the same thing. But by that point, I've got my gun out. I'm no longer as much of a sitting duck. The hard peek, whilst I'm trying to juggle my shit and get in position, isn't as abusive, as overpowered. So I think there's a number of things that can be done that aren't simply give more damage, please. I think there's more nuanced ways, more, I think, overall that address problems we have across the entirety of the game, because does anyone really want to play a wide swing meta? Like there's other ideas there in terms of slowing down players that could be attempted. I think there's more complex, more nuanced solutions than just give big fire.
Yeah. Is there a difference in damage done between the T and CT molly right now, like in pure tick damage?
I would have to check, to be honest.
Back in the day,
I feel like yes.
I think the CT. Back in the day, I think the CT molly did more damage to Kevlar. There was something different like that. There's something weird where like the CT molly would damage your Kevlar and your HP, while the T molly would only damage your HP or something like that. But I don't know if that's happening anymore. I don't know why they made it smaller. There's no point. It's worse, more expensive, and it's supposed to be a defensive weapon more than an offensive weapon, I feel like. Why is it less effective on the defensive side of the game than the offensive side of the game in that case? Because
it was too powerful for a moment. Like, it was so good. That's essentially why it got nerfed. It was very, very strong. Yeah.
It's just very strange to me. I think bigger. Make it bigger again. Make it the same size. There's no...
Yeah, one of the big issues, I think you can... To return back to my actual frame of mind, I would only do one or the other. I wouldn't increase its size and damage. Because currently, if you made it higher damage, kept it the same area, it'd be more skillful to use it. Because the majority of CT mollies are not very hard to throw.
No.
T mollies are often more complicated. I mean, just think about Inferno. T's to throw a molly into the site on B. You need a degree in geometry. Like I'm exaggerating a bit, but relative to just chuck at angle, chuck at corridor, it's a lot more complicated. And the thing is, if you have the molly in the right place, in place in banana, you can get a lot of damage out if you had higher damage on it. But just doing both means you could just kind of throw it haphazardly. It would spread massively. It'd kill everyone. So I do like the idea of keeping one of the nerfs to it just to make it more skillful to use it. And I think it should be higher damage in a more specific place. Because it's like when people throw a sloppy top banana molly to try and counter a rush, and they, in front of sandbags, and they just leave a gap. You can just run around it currently. That sort of thing would still be abusable by the T side. You'd still be able to punish mistakes, but it wouldn't be, you wouldn't have the other scenario where if you increase the area, increase the damage, it's almost impossible to make that mistake. You kind of have to throw it on the roof for it to not actually do anything. Throwing it towards the top of car, throwing it towards sandbags. So I think that's my main point of contention as well. I'd rather do one or the other, rather than just smash both in and just see what happens. I think it'd end up being too powerful again. But the bigger issue does still seem to be, if you want the CT side to be more effective, make wide swinging less powerful, because it currently is still a bit too highly tuned, and you can just bang people's heads off far too quickly for the game to be CT sided.
Yeah, it's probably the case. Yeah, because it used to be that the defense, it still is to a degree, but like fundamentally being on the defensive side is easier than the offensive side, because you wait for the other guy to make a move. That's kind of fundamental in games in general. But obviously, if you can just swing an angle and have the favorable fight, that kind of erodes that a little bit. So make it bigger. I don't really see why, even if it was too powerful, why did you have to make it smaller? It just, the maps are designed around a certain size of Molotov. But like the maps are designed around, we have smokes which can block this position. We have Molotovs which can block this position. If you make the Molotov smaller, that's kind of just like making it harder to actually utilize those features of the map in a lot of places. I would just make it smaller, or make it bigger. Make it bigger again. Even if the original nerf was make it do less damage than the Team Ollie, I would still kind of be happy with that, as long as it was the same size. Because I do not get why it was ever smaller. It feels really stupid. I do actually kind of like the component of scouring the ground for Team Ollies and like making a point out of, I picked up a Team Ollie. That's actually, it's not an uninteresting dynamic of the game. It's the same as finding an AK over your M4. Kind of like that, actually.
Although most players who die and drop a Molotov are idiots. I'm sorry. Like, if you're a T-side player dying and dropping a molly, I mean, it's an aspect of skill, I guess. Util management. But if...
Yeah, I'm horrible at it.
Shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I do frequently die with full sets of utils.
As an unused utility god on Leaderfight, I cannot relate. $79, I believe, is my average unused utility per round.
Yeah, over 500.
Over 500, Jesus.
Yeah, over 500. I do frequently, but
that's a
I think
full
I'm
belt.
very much...
Like, that's just a full belt. There's no way to get to that without a full belt, is there? Like, I guess a smoke and a flash at minimum.
A lot of the time, it's like I get super heavily carried by out of habit buying a full belt of util, and then the call is like rush out mid, and I'm first, and I die. And then that's 1400.
Drop it. Just drop it. Spam G.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give it to... There's always that one guy on the team who's going to throw the top mid smoke, who's going to throw the double flashes. Like, just drop your smoke and flash.
Nobody's going to pick it up. Nobody's going to pick it up. I don't mind.
I will. Every time.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
As someone who plays... who basically herds cats professionally in terms of his, like, Counter-Strike cues. Like, yeah, I pick up all the util. It's like, all right, I got them safely into mid. Fuck. Now I've got to get them safely onto a bomb site. Fuck. Now I've got to trade them because they ran off to try and fight CT. Fuck.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But yeah, that's just my small side. Because I want to judge community opinion on that, get an idea of how people felt about it. And it is obviously, it's always very, very volatile, very reactionary. As soon as things get T-sided, people are like, buff everything, make every gun cheaper. And then as soon as it gets 2C T-sided, it's like, nerf everything, make everything more expensive. And it's just like trying to find an actual balance point.
Yep.
That isn't just 50-50, by the way. I don't think every map should be 50-50. But I feel like 50-50 should be the default state of the game, then the maps kind of decide what the balance is. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that should be where the decider comes in. The entire game shouldn't be T-sided or CT-sided. I feel like there should be a balance to the default game, and then the maps themselves make the decisions. Like Anubis being T-sided, I have no problem with. Just by concept, for example.
Yeah.
All right.
That's true. Yeah.
Small site, what have you got for me?
I have that ESL have elaborated on the overlap between IM Dallas and PGL Astana. And this is once again a logistics issue, which it's becoming evident that I apparently very much enjoy reading about these things. Yeah, I'm trying to find HLTV decided not to load for me for some reason. So
it's currently down. Yeah, I was trying to check the vitality score, and I realized it wasn't loading, so I checked on my phone, and yeah, it's just not working.
I'm going to try to find ESL's own post in that case. Yeah, here we go. So, the situation with IM Dallas and PGL Astana, for those who don't know, is that there is one day in between the grand final and the start of these events. So IM Dallas starts on May 19th, PGL Astana ends May 18th. And for those who are maybe geographically challenged, in the sense that you don't know geography rather than you live in a horrible part of the world, Astana is in Kazakhstan, which is very far away from Dallas.
Yes, for our Americans out there, Astana is nowhere near Dallas.
Astana is nowhere near anywhere.
Anything.
It is in probably the part of the world which is furthest from everything. I think
in terms of Counter-Strike, it's only close to... In terms of esports, like what areas are relevant, it's closest... But somewhere between Europe and China. Like, it's kind of closer to, I guess... To just crossing the border into China, it's closer to China. But in terms of reaching the coast, where all the cities are, it's still pretty damn far. Astana is in... It's Kazakhstan, it's Middle Asia, which you'll have never heard of unless you've actually taken geography. Which is just so inconvenient.
Yeah. It's actually kind of in the east of Kazakhstan as well. I'm kind of just looking at a map right now. Yeah, you would have an easier time flying to Ulaanbaatar for a LAN than you would have flying to Krakow. It is quite literally on the opposite side of the world from Dallas. It's very far. So it's a very long travel time. And what that means is that not only is it difficult for you to get there in the first place, it is so difficult that there's not even flights every day, it seems, out of Astana that would actually lead to Dallas. So the travel plan, what ESL originally said is that we don't recommend you attend both Dallas and Astana because there's no good travel pathways. And then the teams were like, actually, we have a travel plan right here, which is going to work. And ESL were like, that's very, very difficult, but all right, we'll allow it. And okay, so here's how things are going. For Dallas, the designated arrival day is the 17th of May because you have media day on the 18th of May, and then the event starts on the 19th. So teams who are in both Astana and Dallas are now allowed to skip the first day and arrive on the 19th with a fine for $4,000 and 5% of their prize money winnings deducted, which is according to some rule book that they have. And I think this also includes the club share. So even if you only get $4,000, you also get $20,000 in the club share, which is also probably going to count towards that. You're going to lose 5% of that. So you're losing. That basically means if you're not making the top half of the event, if you're not making top 8, you're probably losing money on attending the event, I would say. Just off the top of my head. Depending on how much the TO and the org actually pay to get there. I'm not sure exactly how that's split.
So a team that... But you have to go deep in Astana for this to matter, don't you?
Yes, you have to go to top 4 because, and I'm gonna find exactly how. There is teams who make top 4 And it's a shame that HLTV is down because I'd want to check the dates for these playoff games. But I'm assuming I'm assuming both of the semifinals are played the day before the final. So we're talking about May 17th and 18th. Just gonna double check that. There's no date set on these. Anyway, I'm assuming that's the case because why wouldn't it be? They also have a third place decider played on the final day, I think. So teams who make top 4 will be playing in Astana on May 17th, which is after the previous flight from Astana to Dallas would have left. So if you are in the top 4, the next flight you can take out of Astana is 2:15 a.m. 19th of May. And there's a stopover in Istanbul, and if everything goes to plan, they're going to arrive at 12:45 p.m. in Dallas. And teams they've been gracious enough, the ESL, to give them the later slot, like the later match slot for the first couple of games. So that means they're going to end up in... they're probably not going to play until... Actually, maybe they do play all the opening games in the same day. Because it's a Swiss. I'm not sure exactly how it goes, but they're going to have a slight bit of time. But it's going to be really difficult. It's going to be extremely difficult to make it there in time. So that's what's happening here if you make top 4. And for those who don't know, here are the overlapping teams. The invited teams are Eternal Fire, MongolZ, G2, Gamer Legion, and Furia. They are overlapping between Dallas and Astana, so they are at risk of this. There's also LinVision and NRG, who are qualified for Dallas and are also still in the close qualifier for Astana. So technically could make it in. I don't think... Neither of us think they actually have a chance of making top 4 at the event, so they're obviously not going to be hugely impacted by this.
Yeah.
They can probably leave in time. So I'm going to strike those. But what I want to do is I'm going to make a prediction here, and we're going to come back to this at the end of May when Dallas is going to start. Eternal Fire, MongolZ, G2, Gamer Legion, and Furia. Which of these do you think will arrive late for Dallas? Making top 4 in Astana, basically.
I mean, you said MongolZ, right? They're in Astana.
Yeah, MongolZ are definitely a start. And checking the Astana event, Spirit are here, Navi are here, Astralis, VP are here, but there's no Vitality, there's no Mouse, there's no FaZe, so there's less hiccups, I would say, for a team like MongolZ to make it deep. So
yeah, so probably Spirit, probably MongolZ.
Spirit would be fine because they're not playing Dallas.
Oh, they're not playing Dallas. Oh, sorry, I missed that part.
No.
Eternal Fire playing both, right?
Yep.
And Navi playing both?
G2. Nope.
So Eternal Fire, MongolZ, G2. That's probably it. But that's still 3 teams.
Probably it.
Like.
Yeah. And I'll also remind you that this is... I don't know what the time zone difference between Astana and Dallas is. I'm assuming 12 hours, more or less.
Quite a difference,
You would probably... But even with that, the travel time is definitely going to be more than 12 hours, right? It's going to be... Especially with a layover in Istanbul. If they're leaving...
A layover in Istanbul? If you're going west, holy shit. Yeah, you're going to get screwed on everything.
It's going to be... They leave at 2 a.m. in Astana. After the final, actually, sorry, all of the teams that make top 4 are going to play on the final day. So, because they're either going to play the final or the third place decider. They leave at 2 a.m. after the final. Then they go to Istanbul, and then they arrive at 12 p.m. in Dallas. And you're going west, so you're going
against the sun, so you're losing time.
Is that a 22-hour travel? If I'm doing the math right, 22 and a half? Or
including the time difference.
Yeah, including time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be 22 hours of travel, and you're going to end up in Dallas, and you're going to play a match on the same day after 22 hours of travel, and your sleep schedule is entirely flipped upwards, like flipped backwards.
Yeah, basically you're showing up and tanking a game. Like you're not winning that match. Or if you are, do it purely off luck and just caffeine. Like you're not trying.
I think Mongols could be lucky enough to be seeded against a team like fucking whatever shit team is gonna attend Dallas. Like they could be seeded against NRG and they could probably fluke a win after that. But then actually I think Dallas has like BC game attending or something like that. So there's some easy games you could get by. But you're doing that. You're tanking a game, and then you're in the lower bracket. You might not be getting out. At that point, even if you win one and then lose, your org is still taking a loss. So at this point, I'm not sure why the teams have insisted on attending both, because I would say if Mongols make top 4 in Astana, they are probably going out, because even then there's no point in throwing Astana, because you're not making as much money in Dallas unless you make like top 4 in Dallas, which is going to be more difficult. There's more top teams. They're going to lose money. It doesn't make any sense to me. The Mongols, G2, and Eternal Fire are probably going to lose money off of attending. Well, they're going to win a lot in Astana, but off of attending Dallas, that's going to be a loss. And they're going to fuck everything up at the same time with, sleep, which is important for high performance athletes, as we are Counter-Strike players. And the
high performing Counter-Strike players, we are, yes.
Yeah, it's after the Austin cutoff, but it's also just in the lead up to the major. So these games, like this event, if you absolutely screw the pooch on this event, you might be Navi in Shanghai. Like you might be, going in with a horrible bomb out in just the previous event, going into a major.
Oh, but that was intentional, wasn't it? It was part of the master plan.
Yeah, it was intentional. Yeah. True.
But no, that's going to be a disastrous period for these teams. Honestly, they're going to lose so much in terms of sleep, morale. Like, if you get through it, then it's huge for morale. Like, we got through that bollocks. And look, it's Dallas. You've already said, like, BC Gamer attending. There's a good chance you can just half asleep deathmatch your way through it as one of the best teams. But it's... Yeah, it's still going to be rough. I still don't see it being a particularly productive event for these teams. You
could end up playing a 3-map. Actually, is the final a best of 5? I have to check this. I think there's a chance the final is a best of 5. Yeah, the final is a best of 5. You could end up being Mongols, playing a full day of 5 maps of Counter-Strike on stage. Not even sleep. You go to the airport immediately, basically. Yeah. And you hop on a plane and you go to Istanbul. So that's, you can sleep for a couple of hours, but that's what you're doing. Then you're in Istanbul. And then you hop on a plane to Dallas, which is, I think, a 12-hour flight, probably. So you are going to have you're not even going to sleep. There's a chance you end up having been awake for like 24 out of the last 28 hours or something, arriving in Dallas. Not even prepping, going in and playing a game. This is screwed. Like, the players are going to be so screwed by this, and I swear it is probably not the player's choice to play both of these events.
Yeah, not these teams. No, I don't think you'd want to put yourself through that.
Oh, and like I said, I think you lose money if you don't go top 8 in Dallas on attending Dallas. So the orgs are really just hoping that their players are going to be super are going to be the fucking Terminator.
Just sleepwalk through it.
Yeah, which they aren't going to be. They aren't going to be.
That seems absurd.
This is absurd, yeah. But that's what's going on. That's what's happened, and yeah.
Well, we're finally bringing back the good old days, guys. Players going to be burnt out to shit, and we don't even get fun desks to make up for it. Like, oh, what's the point?
Yeah.
What is the point?
We are going to be back. We're going to be back in May, and I'm going to see how good we were with these predictions. I swear, if Gamer Legion make top 4.
They could. They're great. Right. Back to some real topics. Some real events, even. These are real topics, but back to an actual event that's happened. Back to retaking. ESEA Advanced Playoffs. Something that's actually quite significant in terms of up-and-coming teams, up-and-coming players. We've said, if any show's going to fucking cover this, it's going to be us. And so we are covering this. We are talking about who's made it, where, who fell short, who are the surprise names that you'd never heard of, who all of a sudden are fucking god tier. That's going to be all these teams. And the first team I need to talk about is a team who actually fell short. It's Amcal. They played with a stand-in. They basically, a while ago, mid-season essentially for ESEA, cut Smet, replaced him with Stinix. Smet, I believe, the reason we ended up with a stand-in situation, didn't want to keep playing ESEA, or he had other things lined up for himself. So he didn't play the rest of the ESEA Advanced Playoffs. They ended up playing with Xiver, someone I'd never heard of, as a stand-in, who doesn't exactly do a good job in terms of fragging out. The Stinix, who had come in, was playing pretty strong. But yeah, they fall short. They end up 5th, 6th, so they actually miss out on qualifying for Challenger, which is the end goal of Advanced, is to make it into Challenger. They fall short. That's a big disappointment for me, being a number 1 MongolZ fan in the world. Probably not. He has a mum, I hope. But essentially, in terms of our little circle of people, I probably am the biggest MongolZ fan. Yeah, they don't quite make it. And a big shame, but there are a bunch of teams that do. Namely, Ruby take the crown. Those of you who followed Tier 2 CS will have heard that name before. Also, those of you who pay attention to the show will know I've talked about Moon before, their AWPer, as my prospect of the week a long, long time ago. So long ago, I can't even track it down. But I know I have.
I remember.
I definitely have. And their star rifle, Kaide? Kaide? I don't know. Kaide is what I'm going to call him. A player I really didn't have much to say about, didn't really track. He ends up putting up great rifle performance alongside Moon on the AWP. They end up making it top, win the best of 5 against Nevermore. Speaking of teams you've never fucking heard of, Nevermore's collection of absolutely no one you've ever heard of made it to 2nd place. I watched Amcal's a few MongolZ demos where he's playing against these teams. He's playing against some of the teams that actually end up making it through, and he's beating them. But I'm thinking, who on earth are these players? They don't stand out to me in any special way. But Nevermore end up with 4 of their 5 players end up 1.1 rated or higher. A complete team effort to make it through. They end up 2nd. I believe it was them who beat Partizan in the semis. Partizan of Collins, Emmy, Vladen currently as well, to make it there. Partizan and Golden Garage are the other top 4 spot teams qualifying for Challenger. That's the crazy part for me, though. The top 4, there's 2 teams I recognize, one of which I kind of expect to do well in Advanced. That's Partizan. One of which I'm kind of waiting for them to show me that they can do this, and they just have in Ruby. And then 2 teams, Golden Garage and Nevermore. I think I'd seen Nevermore in 1 qualifier or something before this.
Yep.
Golden Garage, though, completely out of nowhere. With their AWPing god, Zaidu. I shit you not. Zaidu. What are we doing here?
Made Zaibu real, guys.
Zaidu. But yeah,
This is the only way Zaibu can be a real AWPer.
Yeah, they're a Polish 4-stack, come out of nowhere, led by an AWPer called Zaidu, who's 24 as well. Those random things. He's got a picture, but no teams that have ever really played much on HLTV. It's such a strange situation. But no. Advanced ends with these teams making it through. I would talk about some of the teams that missed out, but I can't seem to load the full bracket right now.
I could tell you a couple.
Some key ones, yeah.
Liquipedia is doing X endpoint played and they missed out, which Mighty Max and Surreal and Crucial and Thomas. Fluffy Gangsters, I feel like I would have penned to be in the top 24. They were not. Because now we're very far out. We're basically didn't make top 24. I think this might be non-playoff teams even. I'm gonna check Rhino as well. I've been sort of 1 win missed out. 1 win didn't do a particularly good job.
Yeah, 1 win with Hobbit.
Yeah, they had Sanji playing. Shout out my homeboy Sanji. Laser Cats with Magila.
Yeah, Magilla put up a hell of a performance. Like he was fragging, but they got smashed. They went out 1 and 2. I think they won 1 game, lost 2. Like that was it.
Amcal made top 6, but that's not good enough to qualify for a Challenger. Who else was here in the top 24? Wildcard Academy made top 8.
Yeah, surprisingly productive Wildcard Academy off the back of Friend as well. Friend is the player who's driving them forward. That's crazy. I didn't expect Friend to be this productive, even at this level. I'm going to be honest. No offense to the lad. A surprising run, but hey, impressive. I think another team that made it fairly far that no one's really paid that much attention to historically, K27. end up going out to Gen 1 in the lower bracket round 2. But honestly, they're a roster worth noticing. Like, they went 11-3 in the regular season to make a really high seed in playoffs. They were pretty strong. I mean, Ruby, who ended up winning the entire event, were 14-0 in regular season of Advanced. So maybe they were better than we expected.
Then I don't think we have a huge amount of others. There's Hymo Esports who dropped their core.
Hymo had a Yappy, I think, or Yappe. He put up crazy stats, and I was like, since when are you this guy? Like, I've watched Hymo play. You're not this guy, Yappe. Like, stop it, please.
Incilio missed out, and Kono didn't even make playoffs.
Oh, yeah, God. Incilio, I have to talk about, because I believe, they just... We'll get to it later. They frustrate me sometimes in Cilio. But, teams, some players that I want to highlight that stood out across this event. Obviously, Molodoy was still fucking strong. Kaida Moon of the Cade, whatever. Fortuna, the Spray Jutsu Orp. Ridiculous team name, but Fortuna, he's been on this team for a little bit. He's been pretty strong for a while, I think, in the lower levels of play. And he had a great run here. Zaidu, obviously, the Golden Garage Orper. From K27, this is where things start getting fucking goofy as hell. Zido. What are these names? Zido had a great run. K27's Rifler. And Nita, Nevermore. Probably their most productive rifler. I'm just looking at the numbers for them because they all, just kind of played well. So I just felt like shouting one out. Nita, Neiter. Teach me how to say that. I don't know. But yeah, they had these are some of the players that had a strong run through these playoffs. Senka, I believe we're going to get to Senka later. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Quack with a knowing nod. But yeah. Anything else we need to highlight? Because I think this has been an interesting event, but I was not expecting this at final top 4.
Yeah, Fortuna and Dosix played with Resolux and Wang Jie, strongly suspected of radar cheats, and in a couple of notable instances banned for using radar cheats. Maybe an asterisk on Spray Jitsu there. I'd say Nuclear Tigres. You mentioned them briefly, but this is the team which knocked NIP out of the qualifier the other day.
Yeah.
And they actually made it quite deep. So I think a lot of people, me included, their initial reaction was, oh, NIP lost to some random stack of Russians. But this is actually a team which was within touching distance of playing Challenger League, which is, I'd say, top 50 in the world if you make Challenger League. If you're playing in Challenger League and you're holding your own there, you're probably a top 50 team in the world. So, pretty good.
Yeah, pretty solid. I think the big disappointment really has to be, though, one win. They are the biggest disappointment of this because they have Hobbit. I mean, Sanji's whatever. No offense, but Sanji whatever. But they're young players.
I don't know why he was playing.
Probably because the player who was supposed to be playing was signed up to another roster at the start of the season. That's always the case with the ESEA stuff. But Osic and Kronos are enough talent to get you through this, in my eyes. Especially Osic, he's an absolute monster. So the fact that they end up just 9-5 regular season and then miss out in playoffs on making Challenger League, I think they're going to start having some real questions because they are a pretty well-backed team with expectations, and this was a disappointment. One win.
Interesting thing. This I'm not sure what these teams are going to be doing until Challenger League starts, because for some reason the next Challenger League season is starting in August, and we're filling that division with both teams from season 52 Advanced and 53. So we're going to play a whole season of Advanced where the winners who are now in Challenger League are not going to be playing, I'm assuming. Or maybe they are playing and it doesn't really matter as much because they're already qualified or something like that. Very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, no idea.
But yeah, might have a break.
No idea. Bit weird. But yeah, that's kind of been advanced playoffs. A bit of a note that had to be made for lower level play. A lot of Russian players, obviously, at this level. I mean, up and coming teams. It's Belarusians, Russians, Ukrainians, Kazakhs. There's a fair few Kazakhs coming up.
Quite a few.
But it's becoming an Eastern European game, a far Eastern European. Like it's that's the progress we're seeing in the scene. So everyone else, stop buying new games. Stop playing, I don't know, Marvel Rivals. Parents, stop giving your kids like consoles. We need to be playing more CS in the West.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Eternal Shuffle. Hit me. I want some grades. You tell me the.
Should
I'm
I grade?
I'm gonna grade. I'm grading. I'm screwed.
You're gonna grade them?
I have the better
Okay.
taste. It's fine.
Fnatic cut Bermilov and they have added Jambo, and it is their most expensive transfer ever.
Yeah, that part's kind of shocking. That part is a bit of a surprise. I was not expecting that. It makes me question how they've gotten away with stealing players in the past.
Yep.
But no, it's an A+ move. Bermilov was, as I said this in a tweet, he wasn't that impressive on Malbs NXT. The fact that they chose to go with him here, what was this, like, Fear's idea? I don't know.
No, there's some context here, and I feel like when the move happened, I felt like, why are you going for Bermilov instead of Jambo in this situation? Because you got Fear, you probably could have had Jambo as well. What they said after this transfer happened was that this was fine. This move, getting Jambo, was finalizing their long-term plan. Like, it was the point for a long time that they were going to get Jambo, but then they were trying to get Jambo, and I'm assuming at this point it's happened. Somebody said in the chat, it's so Passion UA could still have the VRS points. Could be the case because Passion did cut S Chilla at the same time, so they would have lost 3 players if they had signed Jambo as well. So I'm assuming Passion were like, we're gonna hold them. Yeah, I'm assuming they might have said we're gonna hold them, and you can buy them at a later date, but we need to play at least 10 games with them before.
And it's the crazy part. We'll let you buy them at a later date. It's still gonna be a record fucking fee.
I'm assuming they didn't make an agreement last fall. I'm assuming they just said, no, you can't buy them. And
then later on, we're like, excuse me, you want to buy it?
Yeah.
It was still, by the way,
actually,
going to pay your record fee. What?
Yeah.
On the financial front, probably not an A, but overall an A.
I would honestly believe that Fnatic maybe has never paid a buyout bigger than $150,000 or $200,000, and at this point they would have paid maybe $200,000.
Maybe that's just the case. They've just been so ratty in the past that it's not actually that impressive a fee.
Passion extended their contracts just before the major last year. So Fear was mega expensive, as was probably Jambo now. But good move. Bermilov is not bad, I don't think. I think he's 17. He's
17 that's the caveat, right? It's not that he's hopeless. It's just that he's not been good enough to warrant being on Fnatic by a long shot.
By a long shot. There's so many other offers you could have picked up, but they didn't. So yeah, fair grade. Sangal, notable non-VRS ranked mixed team or European mixed team, have cut their IGL Krias and their, I would say, superstar signing Calyx to add masked for them for this year. I would say Calyx was the big signing for them when they went in 25, rebuilding completely. Because I think they bought him from Eternal Fire. Anyway, they have cut Krias and Calyx to add Mary and Masked, which is actually I missed this when I wrote about it on Fragbyte. That is to recreate a VRS ranked core from Permita with Beanox.
Yeah, in that sense, it's an astute move in that sense, but otherwise it just annoys me. I guess I've got to give it a B because in terms of ranking shift, it's probably a huge upgrade. But otherwise, the Counter-Strike front, it's pretty shit.
Yeah, and also even in that way, even in the VRS way, they didn't need to do this because both Mary and Masked and Beanox were dropped from Permita by New Year's. They could have signed this from the start. But they decided that, I'm assuming what they've done is they've assumed there were going to be more open qualifiers for them to play.
Yeah.
But there weren't. I think it's silly that they didn't do this from the start. But for Krias, I don't think it is. I mean, look, you can't judge this roster because they played 11 matches, 3 of them on HLTV, 0 of them ranked. They didn't even play a ranked game. And you can't really judge any of the players on what they did on Sangal. I think it's a shame for Krias because I think he was doing really good on Eklot. He went to this.
Yeah, I mean, I can judge them just because I know who they are.
Yeah, but like you can't. Yeah, but you can't. I think Krias ending up teamless with no matches in 3 months is not exactly what I would have said that he deserved after doing pretty good with Eklot and making an RMR. And Calyx the same way. Like even if Calyx was the necessary removal from Eternal Fire, maybe the worst player on Eternal Fire, all things considered, when he got cut. He's still better than an unranked Sangal squad. So, yeah, I mean, poor guy and poor guys.
Yeah.
Let's see what they do now. I think if I remember correctly, this team is like 60, 70 VRS ranked, so they get decent European invites. They get all the CCT ones because they've been abusing the spot for Los Cogutos and ESC. They've been using that exact same ranking spot, but now this core moves over to Beanox, and they have some points. I'm not sure exactly how many, but yeah, it's a whole thing. But we're gonna see Sangal back in European events, it seems.
Boo. Anyway.
Passion UA have brought back S Chilla, presumably as because they had to have someone.
Yeah, it's just an emergency fill, so I'm not going to grade it. It's isn't a non-gradable because it's just they're doing it so they have 5 players to play Counter-Strike with because you need 5 players. I'm pretty sure by law. I guess you could maybe volunteer to play a 4v5. I don't know which tournament would allow you to, but yeah.
You can, actually. There have been a couple of instances where you weren't allowed to forfeit the game when one player couldn't show up and you'd already used your substitute or something.
You weren't allowed to forfeit.
Well,
You're always allowed to forfeit.
Okay, yeah, fine. You were allowed to forfeit, but the team didn't want to, I suppose. But they had a Rooster played a Challenger League game, which I remember, which was extremely close with Netic. But one player was missing, and they had already used their substitute that season, so they played it 4v5, and I think they lost like 14-16.
OCCS so dire.
Hilarious to think about. Yeah. How do you rate Passion UA so far this year? Because they haven't really done too much.
Oh, pretty fucking bad. Like it's been forgettable, to put it that way.
Yeah.
They've barely played any significant like volume of games. No. So I just think it's Jambo was just waiting to leave. I feel like that's kind of the energy I got from the team. Jambo's waiting to leave. We all know it. And we're kind of fucked without him because as much as we like the idea of Jacasmo, the team's driving like force is Jambo.
The bulk of their play could have been CCT. They've had playoff invites in season 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And they've lost in the first or second game of each of those playoffs brackets. So it hasn't been a great go of it.
Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. It's just they're waiting for Jambo to leave.
Yeah, exactly. And then they played a bunch of unranked shit. They were a playoff invite for.
I like the idea of Bermalov going there.
As well. I would like that.
Yeah, I was asked about that on my tweet about Bermalov, and I was like, I think he could fill in on a couple different teams, Ukrainian, and it not be that big of a change, like in terms of overall talent, and he still has a lot of development to do. But the place I'd want him to go is the place with the best Ukrainian coach available, which I think is Passion UA with Kane.
Yeah, and you have Kvem and Jacasmo. Jacasmo,
Bermalov
is not a bad star 3. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right. Big have cut their coach, Kakafu. Or he's been, I think I only read the headline for this. He was relieved of coaching duties. And they have added Sen, who is an interim coach. And I think he was with Alternate Attacks, and he is, since New Year's, he was the assistant coach for Big, so he's only temporary.
I don't think this achieves much. I guess.
No.
C. Like, it doesn't really change much. That Big needs to change. Like, Big are just not that talented right now.
No. People seem to like Kakafu. Quite a bit. I don't know. He's always been around as like a coach or an assistant coach for Big or OG, but he was. Yeah, I mean, he was the coach / analyst in various / academy coach in various different iterations of Big through 2017 and 2019. So I guess that's sort of where he gets his supposed notoriety. But he hasn't been. Good grade.
I mean, the big thing you can give him credit for is that Big Academy were pretty good, considering at times they had shit all in terms of talented players.
Yeah.
Like, there were times when it's like, Prime Taps is your second best player. The fact that you're not bottom last, like, it's just getting 16-0 every game, every map, every game we play. Credit to the coach.
Yeah. Mercenaires, which I only realized yesterday. It wasn't mercenaries when I tried to search for them. It's mercenaires.
Yeah, it's the French word for mercenaries.
Yeah. it has formed, and they're looking for a coach and an org. And it's NBK, Misuta, Joko, Afro, and Perks, who apparently is half French.
Okay, explains some. I mean, I think he does have like a French-sounding name or last name. I can't remember.
No, he has von Erdmannsdorf.
What's his first name?
Paul.
Oh, okay, that doesn't help.
Paul von Erdmannsdorf.
Maybe I just assumed. I mean, Paul is Paul. Like, it's my middle name, fucker. Paul. Like, it is perfectly normal for a French person to be called Paul. But okay.
Yep. He's supposed
Christians
to be of French
too,
descent.
but yeah.
Yep.
No, he. Okay, I assumed he had some kind of French in him. Otherwise, this team speaking in English would just be even worse. But it's kind of whatever. MBK still believes in his 2IGL thing, but I'm not sure who the second one on this team would even be. Would it be Perks? So I'm sure it's just him calling.
I think Perks might have been calling for attacks.
But explain the numbers.
No, it wasn't. It was Freeze.
But yeah, it's a whatever roster. Like Misuta, since he banged on 9, right?
Yeah.
Like he's actually putting up crazy numbers. And now he's just like, all right, time to not try. Bro, you're still 22. Yeah. You've got potential. I don't know why he's tying himself to this sort of anchor.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of this roster. I'd give it a D for Joko.
They made the close qualifier for Astana. But that is so cutthroat that I can't even say that they can make it through. There's 32 teams for one spot. And the teams range anywhere from bait to roller coaster. Actually, that's a solid team. They range anywhere from bait to TNL.
I mean, yeah, they beat TNL, Money Trees, Laser Cats, and Wild Lotus to get there, at least in terms of the round of 32 onwards. And they lost a best of 1 to Amcal that didn't matter.
Excellent.
I don't know. I'm not going to have much hope for this team.
No, me neither. And Nexus have brought back Lonix, and I didn't even recognize the name of the player they have replaced, so I didn't even note it down. But Lonix is back in Romania.
Yeah, so Nexus are back to being the Romanian dream, which I'm going to talk about Counter-Strike exclusively. I'm sure someone can make a very funny joke out of that statement. But yeah, they are as good as they can be. It's a good move for them. It's an A, I guess, because it's an upgrade. Lonix is more talented than Mr. No Name, but unfortunately, it's still a nothing-ish roster. Like, it's still Nexus. They're still hard capped. They might have a better chance now of making decent CCT runs. They still have stupid high Valve ranking because of the IESF, which is an absurd indictment of the system we use. But I don't know. It's about as good as it can be for them. Like Sound, Zello, Launex all together on the same team. Like, maybe Regali is more talented and under a Romanian flag. That's about it. So, A for them. If I was just grading the team by itself, obviously I wouldn't be doing that. But it's just this move to improve this team. It's an A.
Yeah, pretty good. It's funny. Zello, Sound, and Lonix have both been in Nexus and then moved on to other adventures elsewhere, and then they just come back to Papa, BTN, and Raga. So
there's always a spot here.
Yeah, you can always come home to your parents. That's good advice for everybody.
Just every other week, BTN and Raga just doing the office clip. Just the prodigal son.
Yep.
Yeah.
What? Do you think Imma ever returns to Nexus?
Oh, he will. He will. He will. When Na'Vi cut him eventually, he will then try a bit of mixed team bullshit. He'll try to be like a tier 1.5 player. Then he'll be like, hang on. Why am I doing this? There's actually an okay... Like, if I replaced Raga, or hell, I replaced BTN, IGL'd for Nexus, whilst he coached or something, we could actually be an okay team. Like, all of a sudden, we're no longer joking about, they could do okay in CCT now. We're talking about, they could actually be one of the better tier 2 teams. Like, they could also almost be a 1.5 team, I think. If their biggest liability on the rifle is Imma, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Just bring over Navi's fucking strap book with him. Just there you go.
Yeah, Imma, Blitz, Adam S, Modo. There's a whole bunch of players. Keo Cardao. There's a whole bunch of players who have
Definitely not
been
pronounced
in
like that, but
Nexus
it's
and
okay.
left. Keo Cardao. All right, that's the end of the shuffles.
Yeah, that's
good on
the
you,
shuffle.
Onyx, for finding a team. BTN has been on Nexus since 2016. He's nearing the 10-year point. And
Does he just like own the team at this point? I'm gonna be honest. Like, does he not just
he might
own
be,
this
yeah.
org?
The N is his last name, Nexus.
CEO is Octav.
It's a family team.
I don't know.
Does it end in Stanescu?
No, it doesn't. It ends in U, obviously, but it doesn't. It's not Stanescu.
I thought it was a nepo baby situation.
That'd be funny, but no. It's probably it's
nepo 35-year-old.
It's like the founder, the CEO. Neither one of them have the same name as him, but they are obviously Romanian. It's just a Romanian team, right? Like they probably have all the big sponsors, like that you can have Romanian in Romania.
Team. I don't think there is another Romanian org.
Probably not. That's official. No.
Oh yeah, I think every other Romanian team we've had has been a different org. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, BTN 35 still going. $60,000 total winnings. Damn.
Dude, he's 35. He's a year away from being there for 10 years. He probably already has the longest running like stint on one team. Because I think he might not be in Rain actually, now that I'm thinking about it. They might have joined at the same time.
Yeah, it might be him and Rain is close.
That might be. Yeah, he's probably 6 months less than Rain, but the second Rain is benched, even if he's like about to retire, BTN has to look at HLTV and be like, I have one more in me. I have one more in me.
Yeah, dude definitely could just keep playing in this team. Like, especially if they bring in the likes of Imma, they bring in the likes of what's it called? Regali, even towards the end. If Regali decides to go play on a rifle, let Zello keep AWPing. He could. Regali's the best rifler on FlyQuest. Like, definitely could do
Ronaldo of CS.
Ronaldo. Yeah, maybe if he had the haircut, that's about it.
Perfect. BTM, the Ronaldo of CS. Yeah, perfect.
All right. Shall we get on to the prospects of the week? Let's close out the show.
Hell yeah.
Right. Kick us off. This player was previewed. Who have you taken?
I have taken Senka, who is a Belarusian player, and I cannot load his HLTV stats because HLTV is still down. Yeah. So instead, I'm gonna paraphrase Trav, his tweet, which was a screenshot of the stats page. He plays for Nuclear Tiga Res, who have been playing the Open Qualifier. They've been playing Advanced. We talked about them earlier. He is, I think, the in-game leader for them. Yeah, he is. And he doesn't buy rifles. He never plays a rifle. And honestly, I didn't watch him. I'm gonna watch him. I feel like this would be the funniest VODs to watch. So I'm gonna watch him. He still puts up a pretty good stat line with only SMGs. He doesn't even play, like, he doesn't even bring the Scout out. He doesn't even bring the Deagle out. It is MP9 and MAC-10, like, everywhere. I think he has 31% usage between AK and M4. And for a comparison, his second best player has 76, like, on his team. He uses... Oh yeah, it's just kind of crazy. So I'm gonna be watching him, and I'm gonna see what he does. He's 19, so he qualifies for being a prospect actually. So yeah, I'm gonna welcome back Sanji. Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna be watching him, and you should too if you want to laugh. And maybe one day he can join Nemiga or something and be extremely funny in a higher level of play.
Okay, so just to explain exactly how stupid this is, I've got his Skybox Edge out. His most used weapons, 28% MP9, 27% MAC-10, 15% AK, 14% M4. And his HLTV rating on an MP9 is 1.36. On a MAC-10, it's 1.06, which, considering he's using it on T side, is pretty crazy. Just running around with it 27% of the time. He averages a 33% opening attempt rate with both of them. Both of them. He's just charging at people with MP9s and MAC-10s. Yeah, that's kind hilarious. Of absurd. His buy type stats, is he an eco-fragger though? I mean, his full by V full by ADR in 2025 is 96. And he's buying
That's
Mac
good.
10s and MP9s. Oh yeah, this
Actually,
guy.
does that count? Does that count as a full buy v full buy?
Well, his half
Because
buy
it-
v full buy stat is 82, so he's still
Pretty good.
worse comes to worse.
It's pretty good. Yeah.
I mean, his ADR with an MP9 is 104. His ADR with a Mac 10 is 81. Like he is buying them. He is using them very well. Big shock. He's a really good Inferno player.
Big shock. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch some
absolute
mods
nutcase.
of this guy. Yeah.
Absolute nutcase. I love it. I've taken Steim. He's not really been that active this week. I think only 4 maps, but he's gonna be one of those classic prospects where I'm technically doing 2 weeks worth of stats, but I don't care. He's had to step up to replace the Tanir Void on Gun 5, and has in the last couple of weeks fairly well. Still only 19, super young Ukrainian player, clutch, trades, just hits heads. Been outstanding. If you're looking for a young Ukrainian who can lurk and clutch, and you're tired of him shooting everyone in the cock, there's one. He's pretty good. Yeah, it's been him and Cielo trying to make this team work again. And yeah, I mean, look, it's rough. It's tough, especially without a great AWPer. But they've been doing fairly well, and I think he's a large part of that. And that void has been tough to fill for them. So Sudaim, my prospect of the week.
Yeah. He's a solid little player. Because we've had him.
He's been in a variety of
now.
places, I feel like.
Yeah, he's been around. He's been first sort of showed up on The Witchers with Smooya in them, because I'm assuming Fear or Cynics brought him in, together with Smooya and Soulfly, and then he was on Sprout for a little bit, which was a kind of a weird chapter when he just sort of showed up.
Sprout have had some weird chapters just in general, haven't they?
Yeah, no, but yeah, Sprout is the kind of team which scouts random players and they picked him up. And then he was on Amcal for a while, and he was I'd say he was solid there. I think he was only removed out of but actually no, yeah, he would have been benched for Nota maybe. Probably. Yeah, in any case. He was good. Now he's in Gun 5, which is I'd say an upgrade over the Amcal lineup that he left. And it's a solid little team, which is very much in the middle of the Russian scene. Very much in the middle, because they're pretty good upwards. They don't ever really fall out that much, and their players are very solid. But there's very few players on Gun 5, especially after Tanir got picked up, that I would say slam dunk. Cielo, I guess, is very good, but it's
Look,
like
Cielo and Stein are good riflers, but this team, yeah, they still got some ways to go. Tanir was dropping like 1.23 ratings, carrying through like basically to like CCT finals. Like he was really productive, and it's tough to just magically just be that good when you've not had the opportunity. And he's slowly filling the shoes. I'm not sure he'll ever reach the levels Tanir did on that roster, but he's doing bits right now.
Yeah, supposedly he has both Russian and Ukrainian citizenship because he lives in Crimea. Apparently.
That must be very unfun, but all right.
Probably the best CS player in Crimea. That's actually interesting to think about.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and I'm the best CS player in this apartment.
I'm the best CS player in this building. Everyone else is old or a child. Like, there's 3 floors and it's all grannies and children.
Maybe that spirit 9-year-old lives in your building and you don't know about it.
I do, because spoiler, we're also like the only white people in the entire building.
all right.
I know the demographic.
London. Welcome to London. Yep.
Yeah. Basically. All right, cool. That's the show. See you next week.